Durango, Mexico, autumn 1968. A rig groans somewhere off past the fence line, and the dust doesn't so much fall as hang in the air, refusing to settle. An old man stands at the edge of a film set that isn't his world and never will be, holding a photograph so tightly the corners have gone soft. His name doesn't matter yet. Give it a minute, it will. He rode 2,000 miles to get here. Not by plane, planes cost money he doesn't have anymore, but by bus, seat after seat, town after town, a rolling mill worker's pension stretched thin across a continent. Behind him, a mill town in Pennsylvania. A wife buried 5 years now, and a son who never came home from a war that technically never got the word war stamped on it. They called it a conflict. Try telling that to a father. The son's name was Michael, 1st Lieutenant United States Marine Corps. Gone down near a frozen river in the winter of 1951. And gone down is a generous way to put it. The body was never found. Only a telegram, a folded flag, and 17 years of a house that never quite stopped being too quiet. Michael wrote his father every week from Korea. Somewhere around 600 letters made the trip in the other direction, out of that Pennsylvania farmhouse and into the void, because a boy who never comes home doesn't get to read them. The old man kept writing anyway. Grief needs a place to go, and his went into envelopes. 2 weeks before this desert morning, one more letter arrived, except this one had a return address, and this one was for him. The letter claimed its writer had served beside Michael, had personal effects, had, more precisely, a price. $300, the letter said, plus the cost of a bus ticket, and a man calling himself an old war buddy would hand-deliver whatever remained of a lieutenant lost 17 years ago. The return address, care of a film production, somewhere called Durango. So the old man sold the one thing he had left of value, his late wife's wedding ring, and bought a ticket south. That's the shape of the wound. Now here's the man who happens to be standing nearby when it opens back up. Jack Tremaine isn't famous the way the town he's shooting in might suggest. He's a working actor, the kind whose face you'd recognize before you could place a name to it. 6 pictures deep into a career built on squinting into desert light and outdrawing men half his age on screen. He's 61 this year, built like a fence post that's weathered 40 winters, and he has exactly 0 patience left in his tank for cruelty, dressed up as opportunity. He's on his coffee break outside his trailer when he first notices the old man. It's the stillness that catches his eye. Everyone else on this set moves like they're being paid by the footstep. Grips hauling cable, wranglers walking horses, someone shouting about a light stand that's 2 feet too far stage left. And then there's this one figure, motionless by trailer 9, wearing a wool suit sized for a bigger man than the one currently wearing it, holding something to his chest like it might blow away. Jack sets the coffee down. He doesn't know yet that he's about to spend the next 7 days rearranging his schedule, his bank account, and quite possibly his understanding of what a stranger owes another stranger. He just knows something is wrong with that picture, and he's the kind of man who walks toward wrong pictures instead of past them. Help you find something, friend? The old man turns slow, like his whole body has to catch up with the decision to move. I'm waiting on a man, he says. One who served with my boy? What's the man's name? The old man doesn't have one, just initials on a letter and a trailer number. Jack asks to see the letter. He reads it once, then again, slower, and something in his jaw tightens on the second pass that wasn't there on the first. He knows Marine Corps units the way some men know batting averages, hard-won trivia from years of shaking hands with veterans at premieres, letters from men who'd served, evenings spent listening rather than talking. And the unit named in this letter is wrong. Not almost right. Wrong in the specific, careless way of a man who read half a newspaper article and filled in the rest with guesswork. What outfit was your son in? Jack asks, already suspecting the answer won't match the paper in the old man's hand. 1st Battalion, 5th Marines. He used to call them the Deadly Fifth in his letters. Said it like a joke, but he was proud of it. The letter says 8th Marines. Jack doesn't say what he's just confirmed. Not yet. There's a version of this moment where a lesser man makes a scene right there in the dirt, and there's a version where he gets the facts straight before he does anything with his temper. Jack chooses the second version, he always has. Come sit a minute, out of this sun. He walks the old man, whose name, it turns out, is Walter Hargrove, into his own trailer, pours him water from a jug that's been sitting since morning, and does not ask for the photograph. Some things a man shows you when he's ready, not before. Then Jack picks up the phone bolted to his trailer wall and starts making calls that have nothing to do with the picture he's supposed to be shooting. The man behind the letter isn't hard to find. He's found, in fact, in about 20 minutes, lounging in the wardrobe tent with a cigarette and an audience of one, a young script assistant who has clearly not yet learned to recognize a con man's smile. His name is Ray Doss, 44 years old, a stunt coordinator's assistant with a limp from a fall he took on a picture nobody remembers, and a drinking habit everybody on set pretends not to notice. He'd read about Lieutenant Michael Hargrove in an old service newsletter, the way you'd read a name off a gravestone, and seen not a tragedy, but an opportunity. He'd written 6 letters that month to 6 different families. 2 had sent money. Walter Hargrove was the second. Jack doesn't raise his voice when he finds him. He doesn't have to. There's a particular quiet men develop after 40 years of not needing to shout to be heard. And Jack has earned every ounce of his. Walk with me. Ray tries the smile that's worked on foremen and directors and the occasional police officer. It does not work on Jack. In the trailer, with Walter seated on the small couch and the photograph now face down on his knee, Jack asks Ray one question. What unit was Lieutenant Hargrove in? Ray guesses wrong. Guesses again. Wrong again. And worse this time, because now it's obvious he never served with anyone, anywhere, in any uniform. Get your gear, Jack tells him. You're off this production. Don't write to another family as long as you live. Ray tries to argue that it's just a story, just a little embellishment. Nobody's really hurt. And that's when Jack steps close enough that the argument dies somewhere in Ray's throat before it finishes forming. Nobody on the crew that evening remembers exactly how Ray ended up with a split lip. Ray isn't talking either. He's on a bus north before the sun goes down, and nobody in Durango sees him again. Back in the trailer, Walter Hargrove hasn't moved. He hasn't opened his eyes since the door shut on Ray Doss's exit. Jack sits across from him, and here's the thing about this next part. He doesn't ask for the $300 folded in the old man's coat pocket. He doesn't mention the letter again. He doesn't perform sympathy the way some men do, loud and quick, so they can get back to their own day. He just says the truth as plainly as he can manage it. Your boy really was 5th Marines. I'm going to find someone who served next to him. I'm putting that man on a plane. He's coming here, and he's going to sit with you, and you're not paying 1 red cent for it. That work for you? Walter can't answer in words. He nods. That's enough. Jack gets to work the way some men pray, methodically, without fanfare, expecting results because he's put in the calls to expect them. First to a contact at Marine Corps Records in Virginia, a favor owed since a premiere nearly 20 years back. He gives the name, Hargrove, Michael, 1st Battalion, 5th Marines, Korea, February 1951. The officer promises an answer within 2 hours. Second call to a Veterans Association out of Camp Pendleton. Anyone still living who'd served in the same company during that river crossing. 3 names come back. 1 man's already passed. 1's in a hospital bed in Texas. Past conversation. The 3rd is in a small city in Ohio. A man named Elias Renner. 3rd call goes to Elias himself. A former corporal, twice wounded, spent the years since working a hardware counter and speaking to almost no one about the war. The line goes quiet for a long stretch after Jack explains why he's calling. Quiet enough that Jack starts to wonder if the man's hung up. Then Elias says 4 words that answer everything. I still have them. Jack pays for the flight out of his own account, books the hotel, covers the dinner Elias eats alone at the airport, waiting on a connection, not knowing yet exactly what he's flying into. 2 days later, Elias Renner sits across from Walter Hargrove in Jack's trailer. He's younger than Walter by decades, but carries himself older than his years. The particular posture of a man who's seen the worst a winter can offer, and never fully put it down. In his hand, a small tin, dented at one corner, the kind a man might once have kept tobacco in. Jack stands by the door. He doesn't sit. This isn't his moment to occupy. Mr. Hargrove, he says, this is Corporal Renner. He served alongside your son. He's brought something for you. Elias opens the tin. Inside a set of dog tags on a cord gone stiff with age and old sweat. He doesn't hand them over so much as place them, deliberately, into Walter's open palm and close the old man's fingers around them himself. Nobody speaks for a long minute. Then Walter Hargrove begins to cry. Not the polite grief of a funeral, but something older and deeper, 17 years compressed into a single unbroken sound. He hasn't cried like this since a Marine Corps officer stood on his porch with a telegram in 1951. He hasn't been able to. Jack steps outside and lets the door close soft behind him. He doesn't go back in for 2 hours. He sits on a folding chair in whatever shade the set offers and reads a paperback he's read at least twice before, because some moments aren't his to witness, only to make possible. When he finally returns, Elias has told Walter everything there is to tell. How Michael held the rear position at a river crossing outside a dying town. How he pulled 3 wounded men out of a frozen ditch under fire before the enemy came over the ridgeline. How he told the 3 of them to go on ahead and said he'd catch up on the far bank. He never caught up. Elias was one of the 3 men he saved. In 1968, he's the only one of them still breathing. He'd carried those tags sewn into the lining of a jacket for 17 years, unable to mail them, unable to explain in a letter what needed to be said face to face. Some things, Elias tells Jack later, on the drive back to the airport, you hand a man, you don't post them. Jack doesn't answer. He keeps both hands on the wheel and lets the desert go by. 7 days, 3 phone calls, 1 plane ticket, 17 years of silence, closed in the space of a week. Walter Hargrove stays 2 more nights in Durango. He has dinner with Jack and Elias at a small roadside cafe, mostly listening while the 2 younger men trade stories about places and men Walter will never fully understand. But he doesn't need to understand them. He just needs to sit near them. On the morning Walter leaves, Jack hands him an envelope at the bus depot. Inside, $300, the exact figure a con man once demanded for a lie. A note, unsigned, reads simply, "You already paid. You don't owe another cent to anyone." Walter tries to hand it back. Jack's already walking away. Walter Hargrove lives another 3 years. He keeps his son's dog tags in a small wooden box on the nightstand, taking them out each morning and returning them each night. A ritual with no audience but himself. He never tells the story back home, not to his pastor, not to his neighbors, not to the men down at the Union Hall. Some grief, once it finds its resting place, doesn't need retelling to be real. He does start showing up to the town's Memorial Day parade again, after 17 years of watching from behind drawn curtains. He stands with the veterans at the curb, rather than the crowd across the street. And though he never wore a uniform himself, the men who did make room for him without being asked. Grief has its own uniform, and they recognize it. He dies in his sleep in the spring of 1971. His will leaves the dog tags to a small veterans museum in Ohio, alongside Elias's own lapel pin, donated separately, years apart, ending up in the same glass case regardless. His will also leaves one sealed envelope, addressed to a production office, care of a man who never asked to be thanked. Jack Tremaine opens it alone. Inside, 4 sentences in the careful, slow handwriting of a man who left school after the 8th grade to work a rolling mill. I never asked who paid for that plane ticket. I never needed to. My son came home to me for one afternoon in Durango. Thank you for the afternoon. Jack folds the letter, puts it in a desk drawer and never mentions it to another living soul. It's found there years later, among papers nobody expected to matter. Proof of nothing except that some kindnesses are done specifically so they'll never be found out. There's a placard today, underneath a small glass case in that Ohio museum, that reads plainly, "Dog tags, recovered and returned through the private efforts of an individual who requested his name never be recorded." A journalist tried to chase the story down years later. Elias Renner, by then an old man himself, would only say that someone had once paid for a plane ticket and asked never to be thanked for it publicly. That's as far as the trail goes, and maybe that's exactly as far as it was ever meant to go. 600 unanswered letters, 17 years of silence, 2,000 miles on a bus, and a wedding ring sold to a pawnbroker for a scam that almost worked. All of it resolved, finally, in 1 week, by a man who didn't need his name on a placard to know what he'd done. If a story like this means something to you, pass it along to someone who's carried a loss they never quite got to put down. And if you want more stories in this vein, dramatized, fictional, but built from the kind of quiet decency that's always worth remembering, stick around. There are more coming.